Code Ninja Security Advisory. All right, listen up, everyone. I am issuing a critical alert today regarding a newly disclosed zero-day threat, CVE 2026-43655. As a senior white hat security researcher, my objective with this explainer is crystal clear. I want to provide you with immediate mitigation strategies and absolutely force a rapid vendor patch cycle across your entire infrastructure. Look, we are dealing with a severe vulnerability here, and it affects the core operating systems across the entire Apple software ecosystem. We are literally talking about the foundation of millions of enterprise endpoints. So if you manage Apple devices, from iPhones out in the field to MacBooks sitting in the C-suite, you need to pay very close attention to this intel. Apple ecosystems are notoriously high-value targets, because compromising them? Well, that often grants the keys to the entire corporate kingdom. We practice coordinated vulnerability disclosure, or CVD, to protect the perimeter, and today that means getting this information into your hands right now. Okay, let's dive into this.
Right out of the gate, we've got to talk about the risk profile. This is a high-severity CVSS 3.1 base score of 7.3. Now, while the Exploit Prediction Scoring System, or EPSS, currently places the probability of exploitation at less than 1%, and yeah, it's not yet listed in the CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog, do not let that lull you into a false sense of security. Seriously. The vector indicates a low attack complexity, requiring absolutely zero user interaction beyond the execution of a malicious local app. What does that actually mean for you? It means once this exploit is reverse engineered, even low-tier threat actors, script kiddies with basic automation tools, can completely weaponize it against you. Fun fact, historical data shows that vulnerabilities with low attack complexity see active exploitation attempts typically within just 14 days of public disclosure. In our world, an authoritative score of 7.3 means you do not wait for an active breach to respond. You act now.
Let's rapidly run through the blast radius. This is a massive, pervasive, cross-platform issue. Because Apple's architecture shares so much foundational code, specifically the XNU kernel, this vulnerability cascades across iOS, iPadOS, the new macOS internal codename Tahoe, tvOS, and watchOS. Specifically, any device running a build prior to version 26.5 is currently vulnerable to this exploit. Whether your users are checking emails on an iPad, running heavy enterprise workloads on macOS Tahoe, or even wearing an Apple Watch synced to corporate data, if the OS is pre-26.5, your perimeter is completely exposed. The interconnected nature of this ecosystem is kind of like a double-edged sword, right? It's brilliantly seamless for the user experience, but it means a single kernel flaw threatens your entire fleet. Threat intelligence moves incredibly fast, and as defenders, we need to move even faster. Just look at the aggressive timeline of this threat. Apple officially reserved the CVE on May 1st. Boom. Just 10 days later, on May 11th, the National Vulnerability Database published the initial disclosure. By May 13th, NIST had already completed its initial analysis, mapping out all the vulnerable configurations. And then on May 18th, Sentinel alone dropped their comprehensive threat intel report detailing the exact technical mechanisms of the buffer overflow. This timeline proves exactly how quickly a reserved vulnerability escalates into a publicly documented, highly analyzed threat. We went from a silent reservation to a fully dissected exploit mechanism in under 3 weeks. No joke. With a timeline moving that aggressively, we are about to dive deep into the exact technical protocol of this exploit. But before we transfer that critical intelligence, I have a quick question for you. Are your comms secure? In cybersecurity, establishing a trusted communication link is literally step one before transferring any sensitive threat data. To maintain that secure link, hit that subscribe button for @cybertech79 right now. I want you to consider this a strict operational security requirement to ensure you receive real-time vulnerability intel the exact second it drops. And if you are receiving this transmission loud and clear, smash the like button to formally acknowledge receipt of this intelligence. Secure your feed, acknowledge the payload, and let's proceed to the deep dive. All right, let's move to the deep dive and see how this all builds up. The core vulnerability at play here is classified as CVE-2026-43655, which is an out-of-bounds read. At its absolute technical root, this is caused by missing or completely insufficient bounds checking on a memory access within an Apple operating system component. Basically, when an application asks the system to read a specific chunk of memory, the system is supposed to enforce strict boundaries. But without proper validation, a specially crafted application can actually force the routine to access memory well outside its intended safe buffer region. Think of it like booking a hotel room, right? But the wall is just completely missing, allowing you to walk straight into the VIP suite next door and freely read all their private documents. The system simply failed to enforce the structural boundary. So, in a normal, healthy state, app execution is safely contained within its own designated sandbox. Everything is locked down. But when a malicious app leverages that CVE-125 flaw, two really severe outcomes occur. First, kernel memory disclosure. The app reads adjacent memory contents, leaking highly sensitive pointers, structures, and randomization values. Attackers use this harvested data to totally bypass KASLR, kernel address space layout randomization. For an attacker, bypassing KASLR is the holy grail. It is literally like stealing the master map to the operating system's entire memory layout. Once they know exactly where everything is located, exploiting other subsequent vulnerabilities becomes almost trivial. Second, if the out-of-bounds read hits an unmapped or restricted memory page, it immediately triggers a kernel panic, resulting in an unexpected system termination, a complete device crash. And look, neither a compromised kernel nor a bricked device is acceptable in a production environment.
So the crucial point is how we fix it. We're shifting over to the patch protocol now. The math here is incredibly simple. Any build running a version less than 26.5 is vulnerable, period. Apple has addressed the root cause by deploying improved bounds checking across the board, effectively rebuilding that missing hotel room wall we talked about. Version 26.5 is your safe harbor. Whether it's an iPhone in a user's pocket, a Mac running Tahoe on a developer's desk, or an Apple TV sitting in the corporate boardroom, 26.5 is the patched build that actively neutralizes this out-of-bounds read threat.
Let's get tactical. Here are the actionable mitigation steps you need to execute to protect your perimeter right now. Step 1. Update every single Apple device in your environment to version 26.5. There are no vendor-supplied workarounds for this, guys. The patch is the only true remediation. Step 2. Do not rely on users to willingly click Update. We all know they will aggressively hit Remind Me Tomorrow indefinitely until the end of time, right? You need to enforce OS update compliance strictly via your mobile device management or MDM platform. Block network access for any devices that fall behind this baseline. And finally, Step 3. Because this attack vector totally relies on local application execution, restrict the installation of apps from untrusted sources. Disable sideloading where your enterprise configuration profiles allow it, and actively monitor your unified logs and crash reports for unexpected kernel panics, because those could be major indicators of an attempted failed exploit. Now, you might wonder why researchers push these zero-day details public so aggressively. Well, it comes down to the white hat code of ethics. Users need to know to protect their systems. Through coordinated vulnerability disclosure, we work closely with vendors like Apple to ensure a patch is ready, but we completely rely on public awareness to guarantee those patches are actually applied by you. Historically, secrecy almost exclusively benefits the attacker. When bugs are kept quiet, advanced persistent threats just hoard them and use them silently against targets for months or even years. Security through obscurity, that is a failed model. Transparency forces fixes, it secures end users, and ultimately it hardens our global infrastructure against malicious actors. That concludes this Code Ninja Security Advisory. Get out there, execute your patch protocols, monitor your MDM telemetry, and lock down your device fleets. But honestly, ask yourself this one thing before you log off today. Are you absolutely certain every single legacy device on your network is actually patched? Or is there a forgotten, powered-on iPad sitting in a conference room right now, quietly exposing your entire perimeter? Find out. Protect your perimeter, and above all, stay secure.